and sisters, today we heard from the Gospel of the Gospel of Luke. The golden rule: do as to others as you would like them to do unto you. We've all been taught that, even in kindergarten. From early infancy, we've been taught to do good to others, the same way that you would like to have done unto you. It's all based on love. True love is selfless. True love is devoid of any ego. True love is devoid of self. It's always focused on the other. Saint Theophan the Recluse reminds us about this. He says, remember what Christ says. He says not only to do unto others as you have done that you would like to have done unto you, but remember, he says, love your neighbor as yourself. In other words, he says, to have true compassion, to transfer the feelings of the other unto you. Even the word compassion is taken from two words, passio, to suffer with. When someone close to us is truly afflicted, we too suffer. We too feel remorse, sadness. We too increase our prayers, our attention. It's easy for us to imagine. We've all had experience of this. A family member maybe breaks a leg or goes through an operation, and everyone in the house does everything possible, changes their schedule, changes their routine to ensure that that person's needs are met. There are some who even nursed loved ones to the very deathbed, putting aside all earthly cares, all troubles, all responsibilities to focus primarily on that loved one. We suffer with them. All based on love. St. Paul reminds us likewise of how important this is. To the Romans, he says, we then, who are strong, ought to bear with the scruples of the weak, and not to please ourselves. Let each of us please his neighbor for his good, leading to edification. And his epistle to the Galatians, he says, bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. We don't know what lies in the hearts of each other. Even a husband and a wife who have lived together for 40, 50 years, they know each other very well, but they don't know what's deep in each other's hearts like God does. Nor do we know what physical ailments we may have. It's why we go to the doctors at least once a year, even though we're feeling okay. We give blood. We sometimes go for CAT scans or x-rays. We scan and make sure everything is okay. We don't know if we are sick or not. We don't know what each person is thinking. All of us who work in an office know very well, or work with lots of people, how one day the person could be in a wonderful mood and the next day completely different. You don't know what caused all of that. You don't know what that person was thinking, what he or she was worried about, what was causing anxiety. And we automatically adjust our interaction with them, don't we? We try to assuage their pain, anxiety, trouble, worry, especially when we're friends. We try to understand and help. St. Moses of Optina says that you must bear the spiritual infirmities of your brother gladly and without annoyance. For when someone is physically ill, we are not only not annoyed with him, but we are exemplary in our care for him. We should also set an example in cases of spiritual illness. Yes, at times we find ourselves annoyed because our schedules are different, because our habits have to be adjusted, because our actions have to be changed in order to help those even close to us, to help them in need. But again, the focus is on the other, not on the self. This is so very important for our life, our relationships, and it's magnified right now with this virus and with all the restrictions in society. For as there are countless opinions on how to react to this. Countless people cry out that the government is overreaching their authority, that medical society is placing too much anxiety and concern over this. People die of the flu in similar numbers, they say. And there are others who understand, maybe more deeply, the medical danger and take all necessary precautions. Maybe some to the extreme, but if we are to err, it is better to err on the side of caution. Is it not? And that brings us also to the restrictions that we have to place in our parish. We're tired. We hear your complaints. We hear your various opinions on what to do. Again, base all of your observations not on the self, but on the other. Again, we don't know the medical history of everyone who walks into this church. And because of that, we have to be careful. We have to implement these restrictions so that everyone remains safe. Some people say, you can't get sick in church. This is a holy place. Indeed, it is a holy place. Indeed, it is where heaven and earth meet. And during the liturgy, the angels descend from heaven and glorify God with us. Indeed, in the church is where we partake of the body and blood of Christ, where our sins are forgiven. But we're also in the flesh. And there isn't anyone who hasn't had a sinful thought at least once while in church. But this is a holy place. How could that be? If nothing bad can happen to the church or in the church, then why do we have fire insurance, liability insurance? Why do we spend thousands of dollars every year to insure this property? Nothing bad is going to happen, right? but we've read many articles about how churches burn down to the ground. We live in a fallen world. Sinful things happen. And we sin in church, whether we like to admit it or not. We don't like having to wear masks or social distancing. We rebel against that. And communion, that's one huge issue, especially if you're on the internet and you partake of any kind of Orthodox blogs and discussion tables. So many people have suddenly become theologians on why we have to implement changes to communion and why we shouldn't. They take the spoon as dogma. Well, then that means the church lived without this dogma for the first 1,000 years of her existence. Using the spoon started only about 1,000 years ago. It's not dogma. And we do whatever we can to protect everyone. During communion, there are 3 to 4 people close, very close to each other. Our patriarch and our church hierarchy has instructed us to follow the guidelines of our local authorities. That's why we have registration to come to church. That's why we limit the number of people. That's why we wear masks. That's why we take extra attention to zapivka, the wine and bread after communion. That's why we canceled all of our coffee hours and social events. That's why we took extra care and put restrictions on Sunday school. We're following the obedience to our hierarchy. And communion. This scandalizes many people, and some have left the church. Some hop from parish to parish looking for a priest who will go against the hierarchy of the church, looking for a priest or a parish that refuses to implement these restrictions. At a time when we are most attacked by all of now physical health, the demands on our physical health, this pandemic, at this time, it is even more crucial for us to be in union, to have unity. It is more crucial for us to share and to follow oneness of mind. Whose opinion do we follow then, you may say? That's easy. We follow the opinion of our church hierarchy. St. Paul says to the Hebrews, "Obey those who rule over you and be submissive, for they watch out for your souls as those who must give account. Let them do so with joy and not with grief, for that would be unprofitable for you." Every parent understands the joy that they feel when their children are obedient. And they understand the sorrow when they aren't. St. Nectarius of Optina says, "Take this advice for your whole life. If the superiors or those older than you suggest something, then no matter how difficult or how lofty it might seem, do not refuse. God will help you for your obedience." And then he says this, "Every obedience which seems difficult becomes very easy when we fulfill it, because that is how obedience works. Do we like to implement these restrictions? No. None of us do. Do we long for the time when everything could go back to normal? Yes, everyone does. But we have a choice to make. In the face of a pandemic, do we choose to follow our own opinions when that would divide us? Or do we rally around one opinion for the sake of unity to get through this together? In the church, that's not a problem. We don't have to vote for this political party or that political party. We don't have to cast our votes and say, yes, this is what we want. As servants of God in the Holy Orthodox Church, we follow the instruction of our hierarchy. And what our hierarchy has asked us to change has no relationship to dogma. It's not a dogmatic sacrifice for us to wear a mask. Some armchair theologians think it is. It's not a dogmatic sacrifice for us to social distance and to limit participation in church. And it's not dogmatic sacrifice for us to use multiple spoons or to sanitize the spoon after each communicant. Yes, we can argue, we could debate about that topic for hours on end. There are countless articles in strong support of and in strong denial of. But if we're not sacrificing anything that we teach, if nothing in our faith is changed, then we follow the instruction of our hierarchy. Because not only this affects everyone who comes through these doors and everyone who watches us online, this also affects those who don't understand us or what we do or our theology. And again, we live in a society. We are taken out of this world, Christ says. He has chosen us out of this world, but we still live in this world among believers and non-believers. And we are to live our life with uprightness and piety, humility, love, patience. We live our faith. Our faith is based on two fundamental precepts: love and obedience. Love of God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind, and with all our strength, and love of our neighbor. And obedience. Christ says, if you love me, you will follow my commandments. If we have love and obedience, then our faith is nurtured and strengthened, and our life is well-founded and secure, regardless of wars, pestilence, pandemics, earthquakes, floods, fire, the sword, enemies, civil war, regardless of what surrounds us. If we have love and obedience, God will always help us to withstand anything. So let us, brothers and sisters, share this video, share this message, and support each other. Pray for each other. Have true compassion. There are many, even those who are faithful believers, there are many people who are very much afraid of this virus. We should not judge them, but we should have compassion on them and on everyone, because that's what we are called to do, to suffer with. And if we suffer with each other, and we do this with oneness of mind, being obedient to our one church hierarchy, and not follow all kinds of opinions, then we will get through this. And like St. Nectarius says, when our obedience is fulfilled, it becomes light. Come to me, Christ says, all those who are labor and are heavy burdened, and I will give you rest. Learn from me, take my yoke upon you, for I am lowly and meek, and you will find rest for your souls. O Lord, have mercy on us. Forgive us our sins, and save us.